I feel like I've been saying for the past 10 years, I've been feeling fatigued by Marvel. Find it in yourself to muster the energy to play this, because this is really good and something special, I think.
Hello and welcome to My Fave Thing, a show we do here at Rock Paper Shotgun, where I chat to one of my lovely colleagues about a brand new video game they've been playing to find out their favourite thing about it. Today I'm chatting to Katharine about Marvel's Midnight Suns, a superhero strategy tactics game by Firaxis, the developers behind the wonderful XCOM. Spoilers, this one is a bit special. Enjoy. Hey Katharine, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Liam. How are you?
I am not too bad. I am very excited to hear all about Marvel's Midnight Suns because I am super interested in hearing about this game. You've been playing it for review. So what is your favourite thing about this brand new superhero strategy game?
Not to state the obvious, but it is the superhero card battles, which obviously form the main part of the game's combat. Yeah, I really like them. It's a very different kind of power fantasy to XCOM, which is obviously what Firaxis are perhaps best known for. In XCOM, it's a very tense game of hiding behind cover and hoping that your shots land on the aliens that you're trying to take down. Here, obviously, you're a bunch of superheroes. You don't need to hide behind cover, and you don't have to worry about your shots not hitting, because if they did, I guess you probably wouldn't be part of the Avengers or the Midnight Suns. You'd be on that Z list of superhero tier that sort of never ever made the cut. So yeah, it's a very different type of kind of strategy game to XCOM, but I think it's great. It's really refreshing, particularly in the way that you do interact with the environment. Obviously, yeah, as I was saying earlier, in XCOM, you are cowering behind lampposts and walls and all sorts. Here, you're basically using them to just smash up the place. You've got electrical relays that you can kind of knock enemies back into and stun them. You've got stacks of Daily Bugles, newspapers that you can chuck in people's faces. You've got cranes you can drop on people. There's lampposts to smash. Crates to slide into people and shove people into and vault from to do a big mad superhero smackdown. It's really good.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it just adds a really kind of cool sense of dynamism to battles, and that you were always on the back foot in XCOM, where here the scales of power have are tipped in your favor. And even aside from all the environmental stuff, the cards that you have, each superhero has their own deck of 8 cards that you can kind of tinker with and edit and upgrade over the course of the game. They all feel really tuned to each individual superhero. Captain Marvel has her cool photon beams. Blade and Wolverine can slice through enemies in big long chains. Iron Man fires rockets and has some really neat techie stat boost stuff with his cards. Every turn you can technically kind of re-roll 2 cards in your deck, but you can specifically re-roll Iron Man cards to add new effects to them. So you're sort of sacrificing that ability to get a new card potentially, but powering up Iron Man's cards, which is I feel like it's a really neat kind of he's sort of manipulating the tech of the game to make himself more powerful, which is cool.
That's really fun. Yeah.
And there's also to name a couple of the others, you've got Ghost Rider with his Hellride car, which is one of his big sort of special moves that just tears up the place. Just sort of every now and again, when you play the Hellride, a giant flaming car will appear on the battlefield and just mow everyone down. It's great. And you've sort of got other kind of more support characters or kind of technical characters like Magic, who is one of the X-Men and Midnight Suns. She can kind of corral enemies into specific locations using her portals, and you kind of shove people through different portals to kind of put them where you need to, maybe under a crane, who can say. And yeah, it just sort of the cards may be randomly drawn, kind of you get a couple of new cards per turn, but there's enough here to kind of really live out that sort of action figure fantasy almost, that you might have had, say, an Iron Man figure and a Captain America, biffing enemies. It really feels like a kind of really good superhero fantasy of these, while individual members of these teams, but working together as well, to just pull off some really cool combos and just really flashy, cool looking moves. It's really good fun.
I mean, I'm really happy and pleased to hear that, because when we spoke about this game, when you previewed it earlier in the summer, it sounded really, really fun. And I'm really happy to hear that the final version has maintained that level of quality. It feels like they've done something really interesting here by keeping the power fantasy intact, despite the fact that you're not directly controlling any of the characters, which doesn't feel like an easy thing to do. You know, the fact that you're playing as these larger-than-life superheroes, but you are a godlike figure that sits above them, but you're still feeling how powerful they are and how much control you have over them. It's just a really interesting position to be in when playing a game like this. I don't know, it just sounds really unique and interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. I mean, technically, like, you do have your own character that you play as kind of outside of battle. This is a new character that Firaxis and Marvel have kind of created together. It's called the Hunter. Can be male or female, kind of you pick right at the start and kind of choose their look. And they are this kind of force that hold the Avengers and the actual Midnight Suns sort of together and kind of ends up leading them into battle. But yes, sort of actually in the battles themselves, you are controlling, you know, you do sort of sit above the action in a way, and are kind of playing these cards for all the heroes combined. So yeah, it sort of does a really good job, I think, of kind of making you feel like that leader, but also just getting to enjoy kind of all the other cool abilities of the other superheroes.
One of the biggest selling points of this is that it's a game of two halves. You have the card-based strategy combat section, and you also have this, am I right in saying, almost like a Mass Effect style RPG element where you're able to explore a location and chat to characters. What's that bit like?
Yeah, that's right. It's sort of between battles, you kind of go back to your HQ, kind of, which is called the Abbey. It sort of sits in this kind of parallel dimension where you're kind of nice and safe, and you sort of hang out with everyone else kind of after the battle is done during the day. That's basically where the kind of the strategy layer of, say, your XCOMs. The Abbey is where that lives. So, you know, you've got like Doctor Strange is there doing your research, kind of unlocking new abilities and kind of like stat boosts for you know, the Abbey as a whole and things that you can do in those battles. Iron Man, he kind of like uses his tech wizardry to kind of like unlock kind of these sort of caches of cards, basically, that again you can kind of add to your deck. Blade is he runs the gym, basically. He sort of like, you know, can spar with him, and he also has this kind of like quite neat bit in his sort of section where you can, if you have duplicate cards, you can combine them to make a more powerful version of that ability. So you sort of, it all, you know, a lot of these different sections, they all sort of tie in basically to what you're doing, and it does that in a really neat way, in that nothing feels sort of extraneous. Everything all ties back to what you're doing in the battles. It's not just a place where you're going from, like, you know, basically shop front to shop front. You can chat and, you know, you do hang out with these characters, you know. After the battle is done, you can choose to kind of spend time. It's almost kind of a little bit Persona-like in that sense, in that you can choose to spend time with a particular character, increase your friendship level with them, and the more friendly that you become, you know, the more kind of passive abilities you unlock you know, over time. And, you know, it just feels like you're kind of really working together as a team and growing as a team and sort of getting better and understanding these characters. Like, it's really well written as sort of superhero characters go. Like, well, obviously they don't look anything like their, say, MCU counterparts. These do feel, they feel like distinct characters, but also of a piece with the kind of, you know, the wisecracking kind of jovial characters that you know from the films. This, I think, probably draws a lot more heavily from the comic book side of things. When I went to visit Firaxis back in June, Jake Solomon, the director of Midnight Suns, he's a massive Marvel fan. You know, he's been reading these comics for, you know, way before, you know, he sort of started working in games. And that love of that source material really comes through. You can tell that this is a game made by people who just like know this stuff inside out. And yeah, they've regularly, you know, made me smile and kind of laugh at what they were saying, and just the interactions between all the characters is just really well done. This is the first time that Firaxis have attempted something like this, and while, you know, there are maybe areas that, you know, maybe don't look quite as flashy or, you know, kind of like as polished, say, as like other big blockbuster games, like, you know, I would say that if I had any complaints or kind of quibbles with the game, it's that, you know, some would say the character models look maybe a little bit kind of like dead behind the eyes, maybe, or like, you know, everyone's basically wearing very tight muscle shirts, and sort of, you know, those sorts of little things you notice. Just, you know, when you say put it next to your God of Wars and your Last of Us's, you know, that kind of visual difference is noticeable, but like everything else underneath is just goes so deep and it feels really rich and just, yeah, really ties all together really in a really nice way. And importantly, also feeds back into into those battles. Like in battles, characters look amazing. Like the moves, the way that they're choreographed, and just the way that they play out. There's like really good use of slow-mo, like the camera angles, the way that everything is sort of just builds up and is sort of plays out in front of you. Is just like it does kind of feel like you're that you are watching and playing like a living, breathing comic book in a lot of respects. Like it doesn't do the kind of the panels or the text, but like just the way everything moves, it just feels like it as I say, it all stems back to that love of that source material, and it just all comes together in a really satisfying way.
Do you think because they have that reverence for the source material that this feels like it has its own distinct take on these characters? Because I know that was a huge problem with Square Enix's Avengers game, was it just kind of felt like it was sort of sat too close in between comics and movies and didn't really have much to say of its own. Does this feel like it does tell a story that feels unique to the game?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it helps that they don't have exactly the same group of characters as, say, like Marvel Avengers did. While obviously you've got your Captain Marvel, Captain America, Iron Man, they do also mix it up a bit with other characters, and obviously you've got the Midnight Suns, who are a completely different set of characters, and it feels much more its own thing. It does touch on a lot of the same kind of storylines that we've seen in the films. Wanda and Scarlet Witch play a big role in it, as do kind of like the Darkhold, the Big Book of Evil. And I think that when I went to speak to them earlier in the year, they that wasn't kind of the intention to tie it into the films. They thought that they were doing their own special thing that that the films weren't going to touch on at all. And as it turned out, the films ended up overtaking them a little bit. But in a way, I think that it sort of helps in a way, because now people are much more aware of what these things are. It kind of just helps feed that kind of like background layer of knowledge of, okay, I know what this thing is. Even if you don't, I've never read any Marvel comic books at all, but I feel like I can get into this because I've had all that Marvel film and TV kind of thrown at me over the years. But it does still feel very much like its own separate thing that it's doing. It's taking the story in a different direction, doing different things with the characters, which I think also helps it feel like it can stand on its own and not be either dragged down by the the kind of lineage of slightly bad Marvel games that we've had in the past. I think it definitely is a cut above everything that every other Marvel game I've certainly played.
Oh damn, right, that's really high praise. Wow. I am really jaded by Marvel stuff at the moment, but after this conversation I am desperate to get my hands on this. It sounds fantastic. I think if you are feeling the Marvel fatigue, which I think probably I feel like I've been saying for the past like 10 years, I've been feeling fatigued by Marvel, find it in yourself to muster the energy to play this, because this is really really good and something special, I think. And it is so refreshing from a strategy game point of view, and just Marvel games in general. Very high praise indeed. One final question for you, Katharine. This is probably the most important one. Who's your favourite superhero to hang out with?
Oh man, I mean, Captain Marvel is great. I sort of have, a slight girl crush on her because she's just brilliant. She's probably certainly up there. I mean, Blade's also pretty good. He has a book club. He has a book club in this game that, as well as hanging out with characters, you can...
Love that.
There are sort of certain clubs that you can join as well, and Blade starts a book club, mostly to impress Captain Marvel, which I just absolutely adore. I love their little storyline. I should note that you yourself can't romance any of these superheroes because that would be against the canon, and I don't think any of the characters themselves can romance each other. But there are hints, there are little kind of digs and nods in there, and I think Blade basically starts a book club to hang out with Captain Marvel, which is just the best thing I've ever seen.
Oh, that sounds super wholesome, which is really important in games like this. You need those little moments to really give it a bit of texture and depth. So like you've already said, it sounds like they've really thought about that stuff. I'm going to make the same joke I made when we last spoke about this. If the game doesn't want me to kiss Ghost Rider, that's because they're cowards. I should be allowed to give him a little smooch on his skull, and it's disgusting that I'm not allowed to.
You can give him a skull. Skulls are gifts that you can give to people. I just want to
really?
put that out there. Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna have to, as soon as we finish this call, I'm going straight to play this game. Hello, thank you very much for watching. In between recording and editing this video, I've actually played about 5 hours of Midnight Suns now, and I've got to tell you, it really is as good as Katharine says it is. Absolutely loving my time with it, and I can't wait to play more of it. Apparently, there's loads of it as well, so that's very exciting. Are you jumping aboard the Midnight Suns hype train? Let me know in the comments below. For all your PC gaming needs, make sure to check out rockpapershotgun.com, and I will see you very soon.